Why is housing so expensive? Many people today find themselves asking, why can't I afford a house? The real estate market has become increasingly unaffordable. For buyers and renters, they're experiencing similar things, especially the rising cost of living and limited to affordable housing options. So let's break down this housing crisis. We're going to begin with the renters.
Your rent has gone up, and if you've looked on Zillow recently for relief, you've probably been bummed out. Got a bad case of the I can never move agains. You're not imagining it. A study finds that for the first time ever, rent is unaffordable for half of all U.S. renters. The study from Harvard finds rents went way up during COVID. Half of renters paying more than 30% of their income on rent. 25% of people pay more than 50% of their income on rent. The study author rather told NPR, even though rents have started to come down in some expensive areas, people most in need are not seeing a lot of relief. She says new apartments on average are more than $1,400 a month. Now remember, this is nationwide. She adds that millions of low-cost apartments have been wiped off the market. Average cost for an apartment in LA County is $2,700 a month, although that is down about $300 since last year. It is still twice, nearly twice, the national average.
What's a young college graduate to do?
Stay home.
Yeah.
Comment. The most unrealistic aspect is you have to make 3 times the rent to even get approved. 3 times the rent. Yeah, that's it. If you made 3 times the rent per month, that was your income, you're probably looking at buying a house. Another one says, everything is just going up in general except for our wages. That's it. That's what all of us are experiencing right now. Many of us are experiencing that. We're seeing the cost of everything in life going up, and yet our wages aren't. At best, you get your little annual 2% raise. That doesn't even match inflation right now. Now let's take a look at buying a house. This guy's going to discuss the seller's point of view, the delusions they're having.
Look at this article. Sellers are fed up with price reductions and their houses sitting. They're yanking their houses off the market. I'll be the bad guy here and tell everyone what every agent really wants to say. Here's the truth. Home sellers, this is for you. You listed your house, you expected multiple offers, but it's been weeks, months. Crickets. Now you're thinking, maybe I'll just take it off the market. You're not alone. Last month, delistings surged nearly 50% nationwide. Sellers are pulling their homes off the market faster than ever. Why? Because the price they want doesn't exist in the market we're in. Listen, this isn't 2021. Interest rates are higher. Inventory is stacking up, and buyers, they're picky. They have options. You ain't the only house. If your home is overpriced, it's going to sit. And most sellers don't want to hear that. I get it. They think their agent isn't doing enough. It's their agent's fault. But the truth is, some of you are just fighting the market instead of adjusting to it. The listings that are selling, they're priced for today, not last spring. Those sellers are listening to their agents and adapting to the market. So before you pull your home off the market, ask yourself, am I fighting the market and my house is just overpriced? Because in this market, it's all about strategic positioning with price.
Comments here. Been looking for a house for 2+ years. I'm not paying $500 to $750K for a house that's worth $200K and needs $100K in repairs. Yeah, and that's been going on for the last few years. Houses worth half of what they're asking for. These sellers, they're delusional. They price themselves out of the market. Why? Greed. Like many things in the problems that we have in life, greed. That's what it boils down to. He mentions a good point with the sellers and their delusion. And he said it's not 2021 anymore. It's not. I have a personal experience in 2021. In 2021, I was speaking with realtors, and they were so busy. The market was so hot. You'd feel lucky if they returned your phone call. Now, typically, they're like auto salesmen. They're all over you, like leeches. They'll raw meat in the water and Jaws is coming up. I mean, these people, they're all over you for they want your business. They're desperate. But in 2021, it was their time to shine. So the pleasantries went out the window. If they even returned your phone call, I remember having a few phone calls with these guys, and they would tell you right off the bat, begin the conversation, they say, hey, if you're not willing to pay 10,000, 20,000 over asking price, don't even bother. And I was thinking, what moron would spend $20,000 over asking price on a house? That's not the way it works. But I'm sadly to say, apparently there are a lot of morons out there, because a lot of people were buying. I chose to not proceed. See, that's when common sense. That's when the light bulb upstairs should be turning on and going, hey, this doesn't sound right. Because it isn't. It isn't right. When you get into a deal, you start talking negotiations for a car or a house, especially for a house, there's give and take. It's not just this ultimatum right up front and take it or leave it. No, that's not how the game is played on both ends. So I chose not to play the game, and I saved myself a ton of money because I'm not underwater in a house, which nowadays many people are if they bought in 2021. So why is housing so expensive? He's going to break it down.
Why is the housing market a complete disaster? I'm going to explain it to you in 90 seconds. From 1970 to 2020, for 50 years, the average American family could buy the average house in America, which was A-OK. But in 2020, we had the pandemic. And what they do during the pandemic, they lowered interest rates to 2.5% to 3% to alleviate some of that financial burden. But what happened when you lower the interest rate that low is we had a lot of demand. Why? Because the average house in 2020 was $250,000. At a 3% interest rate, the payment out the door was only $1,500. And what did the American family have to make to have a shot at qualifying for that with little debt? Only $50,000. How many American families made $50,000 a year or more? 80%, which was awesome. That 80% of Americans had a shot at qualifying for a house. That's amazing. But with all of that demand and the supply coming down, it rose the prices, bringing us to January 2024, where the average home is now $420,000 at a 7% interest rate, which makes the payment $3,500 out the door, where you need $115,000 of salary with very little debt to have a shot at qualifying for this home. How many Americans make 115 or more, or families? Only 35%. So we went from 80% to 35%. So there's 45.
We bought our townhouse for $200K back in 2016. They now sell between $475,000 and $550,000. We couldn't afford to buy that now. Yeah, I mean, those numbers say it all right there. $500,000. It just makes it hard for younger people and couples, trying to get their first house because they're struggling just to save for the down payment, let alone be able to afford the mortgage. So there's your answer why housing is so expensive. It's amazing and almost like a flip of a switch when the pandemic kicked in, the housing market went from everything's normal, 80% of Americans could afford a house, to overnight, only 35% could afford it because overnight, everything changed. The supply went down, prices went up. And nowadays, the supply is the same as pre-pandemic levels. And yet the prices haven't dropped. Make that make sense.
Needed to afford a typical American home has jumped over 70% since 2019, so a little more than 5 years ago. You now need an $117,000 salary to afford the typical home in America. And for context, the average income in America is around $66,000, $67,000. So most Americans will not be able to afford the average home in America. And when home ownership moves out of reach for millions and millions of people, and I'm sure many people are experiencing this right now, we are witnessing an offshoot of the death of the American dream and a cornerstone of American identity. And as someone who talks a lot about money psychology, I am really thinking a lot about what happens when the American dream dies, when a cornerstone of what equals a good life for a lot of people dies. For decades, homeownership has been more than just a financial milestone. It has been woven into our cultural narrative of what constitutes like making it in America. And so when that narrative breaks down, people don't just lose access to being able to buy a home, they can often lose access to a fundamental piece of what they imagine for their future selves. And that can lead to an identity crisis. It can lead to a state of arrested development where people just feel like, well, what's the point in saving for the future when it's impossible to get ahead? It can.
Unfortunately, it has become impossible to get ahead for many of us in the United States. And the lack of ability to purchase a home, a house, getting out of the apartments, getting out of the condos. You want to buy a house, that is part of the American dream. That is a cornerstone. And that does change everything when that's no longer an option for the majority of us. Because that's always been in an American's mind, that's a reflection of you're successful, you made it. You have that stability in life. That's where you raise a family. So when this becomes out of reach for the majority of us, then things are going to go wrong across the board. It's going to affect many aspects of our life. It's not just simply where you're living. It affects everything about you. Because if you're young and you want to start a family, that's it. That's what you need. You need the house, the home that you're going to create and watch your kids grow up. That's all going out the window now. So there's the reason why housing is so expensive. Whether you're a renter or you're looking to buy a house, everyone's feeling the pain because the math just isn't mathing. The housing market supply is back to pre-pandemic levels, which means the housing prices should drop across the country, not just in pockets of in different regions. If you enjoyed this video, amongst my other ones, hit that like, subscribe. It makes a difference to my channel. And leave a comment, and we'll hear from you guys. Are you renting and you're suffering that pain? Are you looking to buy a house? You got to deal with the insanity that we got going on in the housing market? Share your experience, and I'll see you in the next round.